And I think Ezra stepped away, and we have some people in the back here. Let me organize this situation here.
I want to ask Pill.
Greetings, I-Fi.
Greetings,
Sorry about.
trans communists.
Okay, first,
Oh yeah, Illuminati Tommy. Let him speak.
yeah,
Where's
first,
Tommy?
first we're gonna have Bob Smith's question to Pill Eater. Then we're gonna have Illumitami and
What?
I5 have their match that they missed last time.
Oh my
And
God,
then
am I on a panel?
yeah, you're on a
Yes,
panel.
you are.
You're
Oh,
on the
sorry,
interweb.
sorry. I just spent like 3 hours in Talcott's backstage. I was confused.
But yeah,
Oh,
Sorry, what's that, Bob Smith?
what's your question, Ray?
oh yeah. My question was I asked Jeff Bezos how come he doesn't give more money to philanthropy, and his answer was he creates jobs, and that's like one of the biggest philanthropic thing that you can do for the.
Oh, that
What
was nice. I would have told your ass I ain't obligated to give any of my money to anything.
I was Pill Eater. What do you think about that?
Well, I think when you say job, it isn't going to promise production. It could be your job could be looking after black kids in Philadelphia. Your job could be working at toll booth. Your job could be just standing in the center of a room. It doesn't matter. The problem is job is framed in a liberal democratic way where you just choose it on Craigslist. It really has to do with production. Is the bridge from Staten Island going to be built for Manhattan? We have the money, we have the technology, but nobody seems to build it. Even if you put up a job listing for it, nobody's going to do it, especially the Athenian feminine intellectual class doesn't want it. They'll outsource brutes to do it, like Spartans or something. There's a problem because in communist societies, they don't believe that everyone should own the means of production, and you have to build of what to do anything. And eventually, the outcome should be not just Amazon factories and buying what you feel like. It should be a duty to Prometheanism, to, as I put it, like a transhumanist ideal of going to space and stars and like building something. And we could see that's what's happening in China with their hybrid nature of capitalism and
That's a good
Chinese
connection.
socialism.
And it's a
Like if
bad
you look at the
connection when
city
you
of
reference
Chongqing, it
sci-fi.
looks like 5 New York Cities in one. But that's
You
just
for,
my quick answer.
you forgot one of the most important jobs of teaching communism in colleges to American useful idiots.
Ideology
Well,
is used as a weapon by the CIA, so that's a part of the program because teaching has been hijacked by the state. So the only way you're going to enforce liberalism is that academia is all run by the CIA, which it's true.
I got a blowjob off Brown's boy's mom because I said it'd be good for my unemployment, but I'm only
Hmm.
beating him to his meager check. Pill Eater, I've always
That
said
didn't go over well.
your intelligence is what holds you back, but also referencing anything I-Fi says is not going to help.
I knows all.
Well, I just want I-Fi to put the opposition why someone who would be pro-capitalist say these things, and I'm
That's pretty
coming from the
easy.
point.
I don't have to argue economy because nature does it for you. So you'll notice like people who go to like trade schools or whatever, or even drop out of high school and just like learn a useful skill and produce things in life, they always end up being capitalists for some reason. But then when you're like one of these like trust fund kids that goes to a a deep state college, they always
With
come out,
pastel colored hair, most likely.
yeah,
Yeah.
with funky colored hair, always
Hmm.
come out as hardcore commies preaching the gospel of socialism to everyone, and
Talcottian, even. Yeah.
they always use terms like unions and proletariats and bourgeoisie and stuff like that because they're always talking about like the workers reclaiming their money back from the company. And so they never want to talk about the person who created the company and who owns the company and who gets to decide how much of the money gets distributed around the company. It's
You
always
know what
about
I find?
Even
it's
if
always
that
about
person
me.
isn't like shady, doesn't do shitty business, so there's no
Isn't
like
it
check and
just the way
balance
of God in the universe that this
at all.
panel wants me and I-Fi
But
to fight? But
nature,
damn it, we
Tommy,
agree.
I was talking. Thank you.
Yeah, but
But
you're a
I
woman.
think
Nature actually works
I-Fi
out more of a gift. Hi,
I-Fi
Tommy.
has a legitimate.
I want like one word to get out, and I'm almost done, and then you can talk over. Gift economy. Nature actually works more on a gift economy basis. Like things feed each other to work off each other. Certain things
It's
that
not
give
true.
nitrogen to the soil, right? Like companion planting. So this isn't like as simple as like, oh, you have to fucking always respect the boss. That just you can come at it
You
at a
do.
better angle.
Because you're
Okay,
free to
so
fucking quit.
I'm not going to
Do
bow
you
down to
want that
every
I wanna
command.
paycheck?
say
Do you want to
two
roll up
things.
your sleeves and say, let's do it?
so Ezra, on my farm, when I grow my own fruits, how many of my fruits are you entitled to? Is it like 10%, 20%, 90%? How
If
much
I'm
do
not
you get to
working
claim?
on your farm, I'm not entitled to any of it. If
Okay,
I'm
I
not
want to say
contributing
Wi-Fi has a
in
legitimate
some format,
grievous. It's true that there are blue-haired 20-somethings coming from graduate school saying bullshit about the economy of production. That is true. But I would also like to say that was a byproduct recently of Trotskyism, the ideal of a permanent revolution, that only the first world become communist and all the brown people practicing communists, they're racist. I wish I was making this up, but this is true. This is by a Jewish guy named Leon Trotsky, and that became the Frankfurt School. And this American version of liberalism basically was a handshake during the Cold War. The only
yeah.
way to fight against the revisionists, the Khrushchev, people, was to basically create American Marxism, which we call Western Marxism, otherwise known as post-Trotskyism. This kind of got really popular with the term cultural Marxism, but it really is Trotskyism. And what has happened, there's
Leader.
been a divide between,
It was
yes,
a distraction.
I follow
Yes.
you, but try to remember who's in the chat and maybe grade it down a little so they follow.
Okay,
well, I'm
Ezra,
just saying the legitimate reason. I'm saying is part of being. I was a part of CPI, an American communist organization, for like 3 years. And I'm telling you the hardline tanky version of the story, and this is
Wait,
why
you
they're
were like
bad.
in a pro-communism thing?
Yeah, I was in CPI, Caleb Maupin's CPI party for 3 years.
Like you were infiltrating, or you've come to your senses?
No, I attend communist rallies in New York City, held by Caleb Maupin, and we would talk about why Trotskyism is bad and the Malthusian virus, and that people need to abolish capitalism by resurrecting a Christ-like ideal of a post-scarcity, technologically advanced transhumanist system.
Okay, and before we go further, I always like to verify, we do know there's classic capitalism that I think me and I-Fi are pro,
But I
and
left the party.
what we are doing
left-
today is a perverse form of capitalism.
Right.
Today's
the reason
American
why-
capitalism is crony capitalism.
Yo.
that
Yes.
deals with a
I'm
fascist
just saying,
government.
I left CPI because Caleb Maupin peddles in white male ideals, and as a white nationalist, in addition, I find that very problematic. He supports the work of Douglas Kim that says any white man that is attracted to Asian women must be our capitalist pigs. I left the party in protest, saying that this is an infiltration of ethno-nationalism coming from Haas and Jackson Hinkle, and the point is it's anti-whiteness. It's control against hate of any white nationalist interest. And as a white nationalist, I find that very problematic.
Yeah.
So Pill Eater, does the community own all my fruit, or do I own all the fruit on my farm? Who owns it?
That's
To
the
the
change that's
okay,
coming.
that's a trick question, because yes, you do own, as long as we believe in private property, but it should be in the best interest of society and how you would help
According
other
to
people.
who gets
I
to
mean,
decide the best
it's not
interest?
about. Again, I'm very careful about libertarian selfishness,
I don't,
because
I can't tell you what the elk's gonna do. The elk's gonna jump your fence
you
and take
okay,
it.
here's like
You're probably
this.
not able to do anything about it.
If you had the skill to make a ladder, somebody needs the ladder to climb the tree to get the apples. You meet the other person and say, you can get the apples, let me make the ladder for you. That could be through a barter economy or a money economy. The point
This is
you
how
work
we
together.
started capitalism.
Right.
So in
Correct.
other words, the voluntary exchange of goods and services through privately owned
And
goods.
the
Is that what you're saying,
best
Pill Eater?
and the best goods and services for the best price will ultimately capitalize on the other.
Right, but as I said before 20 minutes ago, is that a part of the postmodern problems is that we've lost a sense of profit. And going on what Ezra is saying is that we don't even know what wealth is anymore,
Why-
or profit.
why do
is
you
Okay.
more.
Why do you get to
See-
decide what is profit and how much of it is good?
Because
And
the barter
definitely
economy
don't
takes
reference
everything
Ezra.
equal.
So
What's that?
if I trade you 10 apples for one of your ladders, who profited and who gets to decide whether or not that profit was good or bad?
That's the problem, is because in classic capitalism, or the ideal was that
Well, Ladder
you would have,
Bob does a better ladder for
Because
7 apples, and I
let's
would
talk
go to
about
Ladder
what
Bob.
that
And
and
more
what is
importantly,
that ladder
Pill
going to
Eater,
do? That ladder is actually probably to help you. So like, let's just say you gave him 10 apples and he gave you the ladder. Really, like maybe the deal is that it's actually more of a neighborly connection. You're going to end
and
up
Right.
helping.
No, if there's a
and
deal,
know
if it was
exactly,
neighborly,
and more to the
I'd
point,
just let you borrow the ladder and you just give me some
And
apples.
and more to
look,
the point, Pill Eater, why is Ezra entitled to 10% of my apples because I traded you for the ladder? Why
no,
does she
that's
get 10% of
And
my
why
apples?
does she
no
think she has
law
a
can
penis?
do that.
I'm
There's
not.
no,
It's
the
only what
iFi's
you
right.
feel like.
But it also depends on whose land the apples were grown. Like Walmart and
Oh,
other people.
okay. Well,
Actually,
what if I grew all the apples on my land? How much does Ezra get of my apples?
Well, I will tell you honestly, I would never ask for an apple unless I had actually was offering some sort of service. So I'd actually either help you maintain, like
and
graft
the
that
issue
apple.
that
I'm going to
even
take that apple
Riffraff has
tree. I'm going to
addressed
grow
is
you.
if a branch
gonna
reaches over into
germinate
my
another
property and drops apples, are those my apples?
Well, Ezra, if you feel bad about taking people's stuff, maybe you should get a monopoly on force and then form a government, and then you can take it by force, and they don't have a choice whether or not they want to give up 10% or not.
I want to be very
Why are you
clear
putting that
here
on me,
that
bro?
a
I'm
part
just
of a
challenging
functioning.
you, real like.
Because I'm the only capitalist on this panel, because everyone else thinks
Hey!
this country
I
needs
just,
Hey!
It doesn't have to be
I
so
just want to
black
say
and
this
white.
Hey!
very
It doesn't have to be so black and white. Hey, Tommy. Hey.
No, I go to cook with I-Fi one time and he's already neglecting me. I'm a God-fearing capitalist over here.
But are you a libertarian
No,
capitalist?
and just to trigger Esra, I got rich as a homeless dude buying Tesla shares at $50 a share. Kick rocks, you're not a man.
So,
But are
I mean,
you a
that's
crony
true.
capitalist or a libertarian
No,
capitalist?
I'm a
Tommy?
classic capitalist.
Okay, because there's a
But
lot
I
of
do have
Americans
more
walking around
warning.
today claiming to be capitalists, but they're just crony capitalists colluding
Well,
with
I'm
the
still a
fascist government.
Christian over capitalist, and I know there's a lot of crony Christians running
Right.
around.
I
I'm
want
looking
to
at
say
you, Jack
really
Talcott.
I want to say very quickly that individualism as a cultural trait is important and can exist with or without capitalism, because the main important part is the individual right. What do I own this? Do I
Oh,
not?
you're not going to get that with
Individualism.
communism.
There's
Well,
some
it's
pro-commun,
exactly
like
why I'm
Murray
Bill.
Bookchin, who's argued communalism, not communism. That in communalism, the individual reigns supreme, but works together in a commune, the Epicurean society, to make it happen. Murray
If it's
Bookchin, he was also
socialism,
Jewish,
then
but
I'm
he's
out.
Well, in
critical.
freedom, it all works itself out, and Jack Talcott ends up on the street.
So I'm saying is that individualism is a cultural trait, and a good society would also practice individualism, so as long as people know what it is. And the problem is there's a lot of societies that could care less about it. And the thing is, most of the time people thought liberalism was the way to make someone turn to an individualist. But as we know, I think liberalism is the enemy today, is because it not only segregates everyone, but it drenched the political correct language of people believing that we're all Plato and Socrates and Agora or something weird.
Can
Do you
you
mean
take Angela
classical
Baby
What is
Faggot
even the
Carson's rent
definition?
away?
What's the
Or-
definition of liberalism? Because I don't even feel like what we're watching today is even defined with it. But
Right.
I mean, again, it
Fucking
doesn't matter. This
season
is
one cultist
extremism.
through and through.
It's
on
not
every
the
You mean
liberalism you're
classic
thinking like what
liberalism?
short fat otaku would say, where we have the right to say what we want and respect one another. Again, it has some game-like Kuzinga element to it. But at the same time, there's this Max Weber criticism that if you apply liberalism in Africa, they're not going to make a functioning capitalism, because in African society, they're going to do something in contradiction to profit and individualism.
I do
And
Can
have
I
so
a
ask
that
you how you feel
analysis
about
is
that?
everywhere.
Because, like, how does that connect to like the like an older tribal aspect? You know, I do ask about this a lot with that, because the true, in my opinion, a quote unquote true matriarch, which is what was exhibited at one time. Maybe I'm living in a fantasy even by saying that, but the idea that the support that it gave to the male and that actually kind of symbiosis that happened between both, which sort of gave that more true to it in the king and queen sense, because it wasn't about necessarily the capital that came out of whatever they were doing. It was about how they, it's sort of in a way could mimic a wolf pack, if you want to put it in that to some extent. Shout out Reddington with his lone wolf tag. I just realized that.
Is
I
the
call him
Reddington
Remington
on the
anyway.
panel? Is there two Reddingtons?
No,
Not
I
that
would
I'm
call
aware
him
of.
Remington Wolf.
I
There's
feel
only
like
one
there's
Remington.
another
Big
reddish name that I may have been mistaking them back and forth.
So, Pill Eater, at what scale does capitalism fail? Since you made that claim earlier, what number population do you need in order for it to suddenly become immoral?
I would say the threshold is 3 million people. If you go above 3 million people, then it tends to break down into
Okay, if
smaller
there
versions
if
of
there are
capitalism.
3 million farmers that own their own land and they're all growing their own apples and they trade for ladders, is it one more farmer makes it immoral because now there's 3 million and one and
No,
now
it
it's
sounds like
I
they
immoral?
need
wouldn't.
to reevaluate their plan and stop just
It's
trying to sell
about
apples.
resources. Okay, so here's the principle. I'm going to say a Marxist print dialectic materialism. There are certain materials that people
Beautiful
talk back to
Snake.
one another, and if there's not enough resources, then there's not enough water to fill everyone because you have to allocate everything. It's a type of distribution. You want everything to produce, to be used, and to be made again, but not just in stagnation, but to grow in wealth, to go to the next stage, to build spaceships, to build bridges to everywhere, to build transhumanism. And the problem is, if you have a stagnant economy, you're just existing day by day in this weird feudalist society. And that's going to happen when people are going to go way too much markets. I mean, again, this is kind of a rift against, anarcho-capitalist a bit. But the point in being is that you also want to make sure people are in a society that can build towards the future instead of celebrating freedom over the state. But again, this seems to be a rift against anarchy. I don't know if there are people who are pro-anarchist here, but a lot of anarchists get mad at communists for this.
So if the apple farmers out in the middle of the deserts, like out in Arizona or New Mexico or whatever, because they harvest rainwater or use deep well water to grow their fruit, are still using capitalism, then what's your argument about there not being enough water to go around for everyone?
Well, the
They
thing
don't
is, we have
understand
to.
terraforming and water retention, and they haven't listened to Andrew Millison.
Well, I would say that there has to be someone has, we take for granted the Earth has enough water. Of course, the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic, it looks like it's not going to go away. But let us suppose you're in a desert, like how Las Vegas was created. You need the Hoover Dam to make the water and to make the electricity happen so you can live in that desert. Otherwise, everyone would die in Death Valley. And so you want to make sure you don't use all the resources where there's, like, say, a famine in San Juan or something like that. So, or better yet, Cuba or Havana. But
So that's why you terrace it up.
and that's
You
so
know what I'm
people have to
talking about in
be.
that ancient? Sorry, I'm really into this water retention. You actually do a lot of so the terracing that we saw with the pyramids. That's what this is like, and they're actually unraveling this in a lot of the ancient architecture because they would build that kind of platform structure. And then this also goes for the swells because you're doing sort of like this pond retention concept as well. And this is about terraforming. And the ancients did this,
Yeah.
and this is how they did the aqueduct systems too. Yeah.
Terraforming will be important for the moon and for Mars once we get this technology to do that. But pointing being is that the problem with this kind of monopoly capitalism is that it's one step to Malthusianism.
Who has a monopoly in the United States of America?
Let's just say Bezos. Let's just say Bezos for a bit, and for the suspension of disbelief, and just say for a second that if you have all these resources, right, there's not enough to allocate for the wealthier class. And for giving everyone, you have to lower the quality of these things to give to people because there's not enough to go around. And so instead of giving real meat, cow or chicken to people, you create slurry burgers made of blood and some color. And Jean Bouchevard said this is a simulacrum, that it looks like a cheeseburger, but it's not. It's just painted. It's kind of like Disneyland itself is a big simulacrum of a fantasy world so adults can act like kids. And the point of that is basically the Malthusian threat is that we're being told that we have wealth, but actually we don't. We have to have sex with like men who think they're women, or we don't run cars anymore. We run scooters like in Vietnam. And so the quality of life goes down drastically because all the resources are allocated to the mega wealthy who own it. And that's a problem for
You
society.
don't know the half of
Quality
it.
of life down.
By the
This
way,
is what I
wealth
was gonna
wealth
talk
is a
to
very
Ezra about.
ambiguous term because I have great wealth and I have
Not.
no income. So
And I'm not saying that this
what
is
what
okay,
what does it matter
celebrating
how
Yeah.
much wealth
envy,
I have?
because I'm not saying, because there's a lot of envious people who use envy and anger to say, I'm mad that what you have, I'm going to kill you to get it. That's a problem. And
Yeah,
that's
like
like,
socialists. That's why they have to use a monopoly of force in order to take
I would say
everything
those
they
are
do.
liberals. I would say they're fighting Fabius socialists in the upper
You can
class.
be a liberal
Using
socialist
envy.
or a liberal capitalist. Liberal isn't an economic view; it's a government view or size and power.
I'm just talking about the cultural traits. And so most, like what I was talking about, like with the so-called PSL. I don't know if you're familiar with PSL, the Party of Socialism and Liberation.
Come on,
That
where
is the
are we
CIA.
going right now?
I'm saying that's the CIA
We're going to
front
commie land.
for
You are
liberals.
off. You are down a trail, dude. That this is not like.
I'm saying this is a CIA
Let's get
front.
back on
by,
track.
like, okay, getting back on track. But I'm telling you is what's being told as socialism is just American liberals being envious and trying to relocate capital for black people.
No, American liberals are pushing socialism because it's communist light. And if you want to deny that Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto, we could just Google it. But it very much is. Once those commies realized they'd never stop us on a field of battle, Talcott realm, they said, oh, let's infiltrate the colleges and the learning centers and destroy America from the inside out. And Esra, the thing we've both been discussing, not only are they going to tokenize all money and value, they're going to tokenize the lakes and the streams and the ground we stand on, turn those tokens into tradable stock, and eventually require a mark to participate.
Also, communism isn't a third choice. Communism is a subcategory of socialism. So all communism is a form of socialism.
That's correct.
Socialism is the gateway to full-on communism. Socialism is a it's like requiring you do the Jesus thing, but it can't be the Jesus thing if it's not
one of the
voluntary.
gateways. Another gateway is fascism. Another gateway is Nazism.
Right.
There's lots of ways to achieve socialism. There's just different.
And don't get me wrong, if
categories.
every member of your society is down to commie, it'll work. But you're never going to get
communism
a whole
is
society
kind of a
down to
fan
commie.
fiction, if you want to put it, a fan fiction of a post-scarcity society that has overabundance. How it has been translated in the last 200 years of controversy.
Well, communism
Yeah.
is you
And it
convince
was brought
everyone
up
there's
during
scarcity. You tell everyone they got to eat the bugs while you sit in your ivory tower and eat cow.
And that's the problem
that's fear porn though too. Like it is.
And that's what I'm saying.
And yes,
Today is the enemy is Trotskyism, because that's what communism is today, Trotskyism, and its brother is Malthusianism, and that's
it's also
really the
over
reason why.
sterilization. So like that's what's happening across the board with our food and our lifestyles.
The enemy is threefold. It is immorality, it is socialism, and it's authoritarian governments. Any three of those,
But
one step into the
all of you are making an unnecessary
I would say we need
complexity
wealth,
to it.
a paternal society, and a society that worships the artist over the Philistine. Whether you want to say Nietzsche is in that or not, and we have to respect.
I don't want to say any of this mental masturbation. I want to say live free or GTFO. I'll die on that.
Right.
I think
Like I said, we don't have the sharpest listeners, bro. Why take them down this road? Like they might not even be Googling all these terms you're dishing out, and they're not required.
Right.
But then they're also.
I'm saying is that the elite are more. The elite are more evil than what you think they are. They're like a Bohemian Grove.
Fuck, I don't think they're evil. I just told you they're going to tokenize our ground we walk on. I know they're evil because you're subbed up, pill eater, and I'm not going to take us down that road today. I want you to come to my house. I want you to come to my house and have that Christian discussion I hear you having real safe here on the Muslim.
Come to Denver.
Were you over talking me, woman that thinks she has a dick?
Yeah,
elite
I
you know,
would like
I
to talk about
I will
Christianity
fully
too.
discuss it, but
The
I
elite
actually
are
definitely don't. And I
the
will
elite
flip
are
your ass.
created from the crony capitalists, which collude with the fascist governments, which leads to authoritarian socialism. So all you have to do is prevent antitrust laws from allowing crony capitalism to affect the economy. So even though capitalism is the best system, it's not flawless because the way you corrupt it is through
Yeah, it's just
Exactly.
the best that's ever
It's
been
just
done in the
extremism,
history of
you guys.
man.
And honestly, any small, like when it came to tribalism or it takes a village, is what I'm realizing that will always run on more of a closer to a barter to trade to a gift. And then when you start extending outside of that, and this is what you all were getting at, when you start putting large populations in concentrated areas, which has happened at some point, despite the fact that we actually, you know, they even tell you we could exist in smaller portions, but we're told like in certain extent because of the climate aspect to exist.
I don't know
Regardless,
that we're on a
there is
globe because somebody
there's a
told me. And
we're
I'm
also
tired
told
of this
that
narrative of everyone being
you agree with
spoken
me.
for as you're told this and you believe it.
No.
Don't be a
That's not
printer.
what I'm getting at. You're misinterpreting. So we're told that
No,
nature
you're
is dangerous.
misinterpreting.
We're told that
Don't
nature is
speak
dangerous,
for
and yet we're
people,
watching
speak for
Russians
you.
like hug
If
bears.
you
Thank
have a dick, speak
you.
for
It's just
you
talking
and let other dicks speak for
this
themselves.
entire time, I think, right, guys? I don't know. I'm just putting
It's
that out there.
Talcottian to sit here and say people this, people that, because you're wrong.
If I'm generalizing too much, I apologize because I do need to work on that.
Okay. Ezra, to your point of overpopulation, so don't you find it weird though that there's like large land masses of the United States that it's not even being used
That's
right
what I was
now? Like,
saying. Sorry.
just drive
Don't
through the West.
That's what Tommy was interrupting me. That's exactly what I was saying. Is that actually we've been told, and this also
Well, the
coincides
only
with
way to say anything is to
Tommy.
interrupt
Can I
you.
please let me talk, buddy? Please, man. I don't know.
That's
Did
you.
you come up here for me? You came up here for me, didn't you, buddy?
I came up here to talk about that token thing that you don't seem to want to deal with.
What?
Like this is a good example, Esra. I love that I hate you, so I can show people I'll still come up here and talk to you about our like-minded concerns.
So
You
I want to
dumb
say
bitch.
a couple. I want to
Okay,
say a
well, I
couple
got a good
things.
point, but yeah.
Yeah, I want to say a couple things, and then we're gonna let Sarah finish her point, and then we're gonna have a little musical break here. In
Oh,
terms
this is
of,
why your channel sucks. I'll see you later.
see you later. Yeah, you know.
Sweet.
Yeah, because you get to interrupt Tommy, but yeah, in terms of I wanted to respond to something Tommy was saying, but I forgot everything he said the moment he left. This is a weird thing. Weird thing that just happened. It's like
Don't be a printer.
I got like the fucking like
Wouldn't be
amnesia.
about tokenizing the land, would it?
Yeah, maybe something about that. But anyways, I think socialism came from the French Revolution, right? From the ideas of Rousseau, where he talked about the collective spirit, and then Marxism was a little bit later. You know, obviously Rousseau influenced Kant, and then Kant influenced Hegel. So that's kind of how that goes. But anyways, Sarah, finish your point, please. Go ahead.
It was actually exactly what Mrs. Bob Smith was getting at. that the idea that we've actually been and this actually goes with the possible, quote unquote conspiracy of the national parks coming in and taking over and saying like you can only go into these certain lands. And when you talk to certain hunters, you talk to people like me who like to go off and explore these really like remote areas, you are actually restricted from a lot of it. And it's not really with good cause. Some of it's connected, to the lumber industry is a lot of the discussion on that. But there's a lot of like red tape. So yes, and this also coincides with the idea of our livestock and that we need to have these cattle that are like pooping, and it's the same idea with the chickens, like pooping and shitting on each other. This is their life. This is what we're eating energetically. This is what we're eating, consuming. This is this quantity over quality aspect. And this is why, again, I talk about companion planting. This is what conservatives actually talk about. Like true hunters get into the idea that like they realize that they're going to lose their herd if they don't actually respect the duck that cultivates in the pond that eats a certain insect that allows like for
Yes.
algae not to grow. So the fucking wolves come in. I mean, fuck off. Sorry. I'm gonna shut up.
As a digression right here, I just wanted to say I would like to go over at Lumitani Tommy's house to learn about Christianity, because I'm an advocate of Alvin Flanagan and Rene Girard is outside the speaking points of communism or anti-capitalism, because the new postmodern Christianity is very advanced and some of the elite believe it. And it's definitely something that's being brewed upon with Jim Bob, Jay Dyer,
Lizard
and these people and their misinterpretation of it. But I suggest that the Machine Lives plays the Great Pumpkin video that I sent him earlier. It's a 10-minute video explaining Flanagan's concept of the Great Pumpkin and how this ideal of modern Christianity can be used.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank you
please.
for that. Yeah, I was just gonna suggest that after we take some musical break and I play some Alec Empire and Davius Beck. If you guys aren't, if you guys don't know about those artists, they're very, very interesting artists. You know, on the cutting edge.
Play
of
the
music.
Alec Empire.
Yeah, yeah. Heartbeat that isn't there on his Destroyer album. Check this out, guys.
different engineering techniques and doing things, mixing organically and also with, with the computers of today. The whole mode goes left, I'll go right. They go up, I go down. They go down, I go up. I will always do that other thing. Right now the mind is being turned into mush. It's complex in the mindset of me to contemplate infinity, divinity, and insanity. The magnificent sensation and incessant desire to aspire to heights unknown to mortal flesh. Yet you refuse the eternal pursuit of eternal ascension for physical limitation. They shed the skeleton and relish in the power bestowed. Become angelic or hellish, devour friend and foe. Taking an example of mental alchemy, transmutation of the mind states, voluntarily weight, affecting subconsciously through subsequent reactions to life's distraction and life's destruction. This existence is like a set of instructions, dissecting its content and redefining frequency. Many things are hidden. Actually, many things are right in front of you, and people just don't want to look. Open your eyes.
Okay, we'll have I-Fi rate the music.
I'm gonna do what now?
Yay or nay, sir?
I didn't hear what she said. I was gonna do what?
Rate the music.
Oh, the music. I like the second one better than the first one.
I am here.
5 out of 7.
Okay, let's see what you think of this Plantinga video.
Not bad.
Also, I have a lot of more jargon to talk about, but if we're still taking a break, I'll wait.
Yeah, you fucking will. I'm just kidding.
Bitch.
I'm
at me, bro.
teasing. I really am.
That's okay.
Today we're going to play Andrew Moon
call
on
me
the Analytical Christian. Andrew Moon's lecture on Alvin Plantinga's concept of the Great Pumpkin, like from Charlie Brown, but a lot about how Plantingaism can be used for non-Christian purposes, which I do all the time.
I'll get to your Christian bait and switch in a minute, but first I had to address Ezra. So Ezra, I completely agree with the unused land homesteading movement we need to promote. I thought it was funny that you brought up federal parks and shit, because guess what the definition of socialism is?
Oh, I was like, see, I brought this up. I was like, there was a few things like liberalism. This would be good because I actually haven't looked those definitions up in a while. But what is it?
It is when the state and or government seizes the means of production. So guess what good fertile land is good for? It's good for production. And so lots of us Americans could be out there right now homesteading that shit, growing our little fruits and vegetables, making
We
this
still
a better
can.
country.
There's
No,
a
we
way, and I
can't.
can
No,
talk
we
about
can't
that.
because the government owns it, and you can't touch
They
it.
actually, this is why loopholes exist. They actually do this for a reason. This is why you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater on so much shit.
I can
There
throw
is
out the
breadcrumbs.
entire
I'll
fucking
show you.
socialist boat.
I'll show you. It's okay. I'm doing it. I'm literally. This is my project.
Wi-Fi does whatever Wi-Fi wants.
So the beauty of capitalism is once these Americans privately own this land, they will homestead the shit out of it and turn all kinds of value out of it, like resources and produce and more Americans and freedom and liberty and all that wonderful stuff.
Why is China buying up farmland, quote unquote, that's not really
Because the
not theirs?
government owns it and they'll sell it to the highest bidder. They don't give a fuck if it's American citizens or not that buy it. All they care about is money, which is what makes the government wheel
Exactly.
turn. That's why we're in wars in countries we have no business in being in. That's the only thing government is good at, is fucking up
Sorry,
shit.
we're on the same page. Yeah.
So the enemy is socialism, because the only way authoritarian governments can even afford to do any of this bullshit is through socialism. They have to either take your taxes willingly or unwillingly, whether or not you think you're represented when you vote for your taxes or not. They don't give a shit. They'll take your money
And
either way.
okay. So the only other thing I'll say, because if you immediately, when you take it out of your immediate small community, the only things you write anybody would back behind on why we pay taxes is fire, not really police right now, so can't really throw that out there, and not really school right now, because that also needs to be reassessed. But right, those are the reasons you pay. Now, if you were in a small community, taxes weren't a thing, there's an exchange that's happening. So there's an agreement, right? Because you got a teacher, you also have a carpenter, you also have a hunter-gatherer.
Why can't I
Forager.
homeschool my child? Why can't I put out my own fires?
You could do that too. There's nothing wrong with that.
I don't
Even
have a
in that
choice.
sense.
I have
Even
to
in a
give the
community
government
sense.
money for these things that I didn't agree to. I think you're missing the point. Again, the point is the monopoly of force is what dictates who gets the money. And so through socialism, you don't get a choice, even though they bullshit to you and say, "Oh, but
Sorry,
your
I was
taxes are
muted.
represented. You voted for your mayor and your senators and your representatives."
I totally agree with that. And I wasn't
Because
trying to
if
let it
we
go
actually
to that
voted for
level,
our
'cause I think,
taxes, we'd be paying 0% tax right now. If we
well, and
actually
I was
voted
even
for our
like,
taxes.
high five. I wasn't trying to take it to that full level, because obviously, as soon as you take it to that where you have a council and you've got all these people like that you're paying to work for you, and they're not not doing shit because there's no like check and balance, and it's not even actually like influenced in with itself. You don't even know these people half the time. They're not in your personal circle. There's no point to it. This is where once you get so big, it doesn't work. We're not meant to be like this, in my opinion. We're not meant to be this concentrated.
So, as opposed to Pill Eater's proposal that there is a scale in which it is moral to start socialism, I would say at 0% as is where it's moral, because even if it's two people in the country,
Well,
it's
and
not.
just how you define socialism, then I would say yes,
That is
because
the
that's not
definition.
at all how
That
I
is
see it or look at it.
that is the definition, whether or not you feel like it is or not. And so,
Well, and
everybody can
it's what we've
redefine
been
the
told.
terms all
So
they
yes,
want.
I agree.
If you constantly redefine the terms, like if I redefine capitalism to mean greedy corporations trying to steal money from poor
Point.
people, then that would make me win all the arguments, because that's not what capitalism is.
That's a
But
good point. That's a
that
good
just
point.
makes you
So you heard
feel
my
like that's what
thought
it is.
tonight as what I feel like as a pretty educated woman, considering my background, is not actually realizing that was the full definition.
Liberals tend to use the most disabled, handicapped people to advocate their form of socialism. So it's always the mentally retarded, dysfunctional, and disgusting people that are saying, I'm a socialist and against capitalism. And that's exactly where the American state wants it to be, so they can frame any discussion against capitalism as you must be ugly and a monster. So
Democrats, yeah, I
Distracting.
know, right?
Exactly.
So again, this isn't a scale issue, and it is definitely a moral issue, which I'll get back to, Pill Eater, because even us Jesus lovers are still very moral when we support our capitalism, because being a Christian doesn't compel you to be a socialist. Now, being a Christian does compel you to engage in a lot more charity than the average Joe, which is fine, so long as that charity is done through the means of your privately owned goods that you share at your will, not the state pointing a gun to your head and redistributing it to their lobbyist groups or their voter base or whatever and calling it charity. And so this is the bait and switch that happens. There's a lot of retards out there that think that if you're a Christian, you have to be a socialist, because how dare you be this greedy corporate person that steals money from poor people, which is their definition. And so that's the lie
There
that
is
the general
enabling.
public believes.
There's codependency and there's enabling. So you're not doing anybody any good by just constantly handing over what quote unquote they need. And that's really,
and
what
even
you're
worse,
getting at.
when you're stealing from some people and giving it to
Yeah.
others in the name of charity, that doesn't make you a good person. Even though there's lots of Robin Hoods out there that feel like they're doing good in the name of Jesus or whatever, but that's not how morality works. But anyways, that's what we have to deal with.
Let's watch the pumpkin video.
Let's watch the pumpkin.
Thank you.
Is this the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown?
Yes, it is, but it's a philosophical concept that I use always on this panel and against the Tradcath bros and everyone. People are like, why is Pill Eater crazy? And then I say the Alvin Plantinga's concept of the Great Pumpkin, which Machine will play right now.
I thought it was because you found pills and ate them.
That's actually a misconception, because it's rather the opposite of ink drinker. Ink is pill and drinker is eater, and it was established on April 5th, 2009 on YTMND. I even wrote the origins of Pill Eater on my website.
Also, it's a Gen X meme, dude. It's back at the 4chan days. I found pills and ate them.
This is the Halloween edition of Ask a Scholar. We're going to be asking the question, what is the Great Pumpkin objection to Reformed epistemology? Fortunately, I'm joined by an expert in epistemology, Dr. Andrew Moon, who teaches philosophy at Virginia Commonwealth University. Hey there, Andrew.
Hey, good to be on the show again. Hello.
So I'm just going to turn it over to you. I'm sure many people at this time of year are watching The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. And so you've done an interview with me at this point on Reformed epistemology. That the link to that video is going to be in the description, where people can go and find out more. But what is this objection to Reformed epistemology?
First, thanks again for having me on the show. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween, everybody. The Great Pumpkin objection is an objection to a view. So what's that view? It's to Reformed epistemology. Now, what is Reformed epistemology? It's the view that belief in God or other religious beliefs can be properly basic. Okay, now what is it for a belief in God to be properly basic? Well, it's for it to be rational or reasonable to believe in God, even if you don't have an argument supporting it. So normally you think, a belief like belief in God, you need some sort of evidence or argument that you can kind of deduce God's existence. But the Reformed epistemologists say maybe in some way, some of us might be able to rationally believe in God or know that God exists, even if they don't have a special argument supporting it. So now that's the view called Reformed epistemology, that belief in God can be properly basic. Okay, so now then, what's the Great Pumpkin objection? Well, the Great Pumpkin objection is attacking Reformed epistemology, and it makes a certain claim. It says, well, if you're saying we don't need arguments for belief in God to be rational, and you can just have a properly basic belief, then, you might as well just say any crazy belief is rational. Let's say Charlie Brown's belief that there's a great pumpkin who's going to fly by him in Halloween, and clearly, so that's the gist. You can substitute anything for the great pumpkin there. You could say a lot of atheists nowadays are more likely to appeal to a flying spaghetti monster or a sky daddy, or pick your whatever. But fill in the slot and just say, look, if you're going to say belief in God is properly basic, then so is that. Here it might be good to put up that first slide.
Yes,
Jordan.
I'll put it up right now. There we go.
Okay, so
Very important.
what you have there is GPO, the Great Pumpkin Objection, and it says the Great Pumpkin Objector is making this claim: if theistic belief can be properly basic, then so can Linus's belief that there is a Great Pumpkin. Now, a little bit less well known is there's such a thing as the son of a Great Pumpkin, and that's from Plantinga, actually, when Plantinga was kind of dividing up between different versions of this objection. So the son of a Great Pumpkin objection is similar. It says if the theist may claim that her theistic belief can be properly basic, then Linus may claim that his belief that there's a Great Pumpkin can be properly basic. So it's less about a claim about our beliefs and their sort of rationality or irrationality status, and it's more about like, well, what can we say in a dialogue? If they're allowed saying this, we should be allowed saying that. That's the whole idea. But they're basically grounded in the same idea. All right, so making sense so far?
Yeah, I'm following you.
Okay, so and so you can see kind of what they're really doing, though, is kind of giving something that philosophers or just people call a reductio ad absurdum. A reductio is saying your view leads to this absurd claim. So if you say belief in God is properly basic, then you have to accept this absurdity. Let's say that Linus's belief in God is properly, or sorry, Linus's belief in a Great Pumpkin is properly basic, and so and that's showing that your view is absurd. So we should reject it. Okay, now this objection is something that I think was a little bit more appropriate maybe 30 or 40 years ago when Alvin Plantinga first defended Reformed epistemology. In fact, I think Plantinga was the one that formulated the Great Pumpkin objection to himself in the first place anyway, just to consider it. So back then, at that time, Plantinga did not have a theory of rationality or a theory of warrant or justification to support his theory of his view about whether belief in God could be properly basic. However, by 1993, Plantinga wrote 2 books defending a theory that's called proper functionalism. Actually, can you go to the next slide?
Yep,
Jordan?
I put it up right now.
Now, I've definitely simplified this, but what Plantinga did was he developed this view of proper functionalism, and roughly a belief is rational when it's produced by properly functioning, truth-aimed, reliable faculties. Okay? Now, the point here is once Plantinga developed this theory that's supposed to underwrite his theory about belief in God being properly basic, then it was a little harder to just make the claim that Linus's belief could also be properly basic. And now, proper functionalism is Plantinga's theory, but there's other theories of rationality. So that's what that top line says. There's can be a theory of rationality where belief is rational equals blank, fill in whatever your theory might be. You can be a proper functionalist. You could also be a phenomenal conservative, which says a belief is rational equals the belief is based on assuming that the belief is true. Okay, that could be another theory of rationality, simplified. Now, both proper functionalism is, well, that's explored in my other video with you, Jordan, and then phenomenal conservatism is explored in your interview with Chris Tucker. The point is there's different theories of rationality, and we should keep those in mind. Okay, so with that said, it's a little bit less obvious that the Great Pumpkin objector can make the move that he wants to make. So, Jordan, could you move to the next slide?
Yep. Final slide.
Right.
It's up.
Yeah. So now you can't just say, oh, if Plantinga says belief in God is rational without an argument properly basic, therefore Linus's belief is properly basic. Now that Plantinga has a theory underlying his belief, you have to see whether that theory can also transfer over and support Linus's belief about the Great Pumpkin. So here's what happens to the Great Pumpkin objector. Okay, so it'll say, you have to say theory T, okay, which could be any one of those theories mentioned in the previous slide. There's 2 or just more. Okay, theory T, which implies that theistic belief can be properly basic with respect to P, also implies that Linus's belief that there's a Great Pumpkin can be properly basic with respect to P. Okay, now what's going on here is in this, when we talk about with respect to P, we're talking about some epistemic property. We've been focused on rationality, so I'll stick with rationality. I'm just noting in this more clarified statement that there are other positive epistemic properties other than rationality, like warrant or justification. Those are explored in my other video with you, Jordan. But the point here is now we have to check whether the theory actually transfers over. And this is going to be true for the son of a great pumpkin objector star. So we have these little asterisks to note that they've been modified. So here, theory T, which implies that the theist may claim that her theistic belief can be properly basic with respect to P, also implies that Linus may claim that his belief that there's a great pumpkin can be properly basic with respect to P. Okay, so we can examine whether these actually work. Okay, so let's take that phenomenal conservative view, which says a belief is rational when it's supported by it's seeming to be the case, like it appears to you that P. So for some religious believers, they have a religious experience where it feels to them, like it seems to them that God is with them or God is supporting them. Okay, now that theory might help support or underwrite the view that a belief in God could be properly basic for them. It could be rational, properly basic with respect to rationality. All right, but the next question is, does it appear to Linus that way? Does Linus have an appearance as if the great pumpkin is moving around? Now, it depends on how the story goes for Linus. If it actually looks to Linus like there's a great pumpkin moving around, then I would say, well, I mean, if that's what he sees, then he would be rational and believing in God rational and believing in the great pumpkin in a properly basic way. But it's a little less clear that would be so. So it's less clear that we can make that transfer, and we can say the same thing about the son of a great pumpkin. Going to proper functionalism, planning against an argument that if God exists, belief in God would be produced by properly functioning cognitive faculties. Okay, now would that transfer over to the great pumpkin? Well, there's not really an argument given. I mean, the great pumpkin objector needs some sort of argument that Linus's belief would be produced by properly functioning truth-aim mechanisms, rather than just mere wishful thinking or wanting to prove that his sister is wrong or something like that. So that's the gist. What you're going to need to do is see if the theory that underwrites your theory of rationality, which is going to underwrite the belief. Your reformed epistemology, your theistic belief being properly basic. You got to see whether that transfers over to Linus, and it looks like either it's not going to work, or if it did work, it wouldn't be so clear that Linus's belief wouldn't be properly basic. So that's going to be the gist of the response.
All right, so you can
Very
pause the
good.
video now.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. Yep. Good stuff.
And
All right.
I hope you
Are you ready,
enjoyed
everyone?
this Halloween edition.
All right, good. Now that we watched the video, we got concepts of Alvin Planica's concept of the Great Pumpkin. Are you ready to hear how I utilize the Great Pumpkin? All right. I, Pill Eater. All right. I, Pill Eater, have a proper functionality and a basic belief that justifies Asian sexuality. I see white male, Asian female everywhere. There is evidence for it, and therefore it is my proper function as evidence that Asian sexuality, Eurasian futurism is true, and not just can be anything. That is the power of the Great Pumpkin theory.
Yeah, or just the concept of hyperstition and meme generation in general, right? It's interesting, you know. We behold what we become. We shape our tools, and then our tools shape us.
They
isn't that
constantly ask for evidence, but in reform epistemology, your only evidence, according to Planica, is a proper function. Your basic faculties, what I see, what I hear, what I taste, that should already be enough, quote unquote, evidence to exist. The skeptic claims, well, couldn't you believe in a great pumpkin? Well, yes, you can, But the difference is between that, what Plantinga says back with the son of the Great Pumpkin, it's a may claim. You may claim it to be true, and that person may claim it. And that is also coming from God and other minds. Another word, this is another concept to go over really quickly. God is only true not because I believe it, but because an external person believes a copy of what I think. That is enough evidence to believe that God is real. Okay, and so the same applies to Asian sexuality and Eurasian futurism, as that where there's another person who probably has the same beliefs as I do, and I don't have to justify that. The external world justifies it for me. And with this neuromancer technology that I just said, I am now undefeatable by Jay Dyer, Jim Bob, Countercurrents thing, and I'm the biggest threat right now on the internet because of this Akira Tetsuo technology philosophy.
Yeah, you are.
That I can manipulate on.
Yeah,
So
there we go.
I am basically Tetsuo breaking out in the chemical Akira, and I use the Great Pumpkin to get my mutant arm, and I kill Jay Dyer, Jim Bob, Greg Johnson with my theories on Eurasian futurism, Asian sexuality, and digital hardcore. And that is why in the panel space, people fear Pill Eater. And I get gang stalked all the time.
Yeah, there you go. Made by Jew Bob. Eat your heart out. You know what I mean? But yeah,
Pill Eater.
hold on a second, Tommy. I'm about to float.
No, you're not. I want to know who's been muting me in the chat.
Here, just give me a second. I'm about to float.
I'll give you all the time you want. I'm never gonna come back to your garbage channel once you tell me who's been muting me.
Oh, about the video.
No, he has the Tetsuo thing.
Okay.
He knows what I'm talking about. Tommy's going to use the Great Pumpkin.
Yeah, he's...
No, I'm not. I'm trying to tell you, if you think you're gonna come make a good standing on our little